We are also learning new details about the Trump transition process, starting with Secretary of State. Exxon Mobil CEO Rex Tillerson is reportedly the frontrunner for the job. He has close ties to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Another potential pick, though, is officially out of the running. The Trump transition team put out a statement late this afternoon saying former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani is no longer under consideration for the job. Giuliani says he will remain in the private sector. CBS News senior political editor Steve Shigaris joins us now to talk about all this. All right, Steve, so Rudy is officially out. That leaves Tillerson and Romney and a few others on the short list. Who do you think is going to come out on top, and why, if your sources are telling you, do we think that Rudy's out?
Well, we know Rudy's out. I mean, Rudy put that statement out along with President-elect Trump, saying that he put his letter of basically removing himself from consideration in on November 29th. So he's been out of the running for a while now. It's interesting because in an interview just after that came out, Giuliani said that he put that letter in and it was rejected by people inside the Trump administration or the Trump transition team, and basically they kept his name alive for a few days. But he said, what Rudy said was that he felt things were getting confusing for Trump, and he just felt that removing himself from consideration will help him make up his mind. Now, that was November 29th. We're looking at 10 days or so later, and we're still trying to figure out what direction Trump is going in on this. We have reporting that Mitt Romney and, as you mentioned, Rex Tillerson are at the top of that list, but there are a lot of other names, a lot of other people who've walked through Trump Tower to talk to him about Secretary of State, including Senator Bob Corker, including Admiral James Stavridis, who was there yesterday, who's a Democrat who was talking to him about this, and John Bolton. And so there are the names out there. And so it'll be interesting to see now as we talk to more people inside of the Trump transition team about how this all shakes everything up. And does this really leave it to just two people, Romney and Tillerson, or are some of these others now going to be bigger players in Trump's decision making?
Romney remains, to me, an intriguing pick because obviously Governor Romney was very, very aggressive against Donald Trump.
To put it
mildly, right? But then, it seems as if they've been able to at least mend some fences or mend bridges or whatever, and that he is now a potential Secretary of State. But just after the news broke that Giuliani had bowed out, he spoke to Fox News and discouraged the president-elect from choosing Romney over the criticism he leveled at Trump, obviously, during the campaign, saying, "My advice would be Mitt just went a little bit too far." I've seen people on the internet, Trump supporters, saying that they don't want to see Mitt Romney have any kind of role in a Trump administration. How would that go about, how would it look like if he does end up picking Governor Romney?
Yeah, I think there's two questions on that. First of all, how are the diehard Trump supporters going to react to that? I mean, you were right, and I wasn't really kidding to say, to put it mildly, Mitt Romney may have been his biggest critic. This guy in March went out there and gave a speech to basically undercut everything that Donald Trump was trying to argue for as a presidential candidate, and basically said he wasn't. He was a phony. He's a fraud. He wasn't even didn't have the temperament to be president. And so he said that in March. Continued hammering on that throughout the entire year, was involved, or at least people close to Romney were involved in getting an independent candidate to run as an anti-Trump candidate and try to take votes away from him in places like Utah. And now he's sitting down with Trump to talk about a cabinet position, perhaps one of the largest cabinet positions in Secretary of State. So the question for Trump is, one, are you worried about how your supporters are going to feel? Because as he's heard not only from the supporters themselves on the internet, as you pointed out, but also from people like Kellyanne Conway and Rudy Giuliani and Mike Huckabee and others, they said these people are not going to be happy at all if you reward somebody who basically was your enemy with a position like Secretary of State. That's question one. Question two is, what is Mitt Romney thinking as somebody who was out there who admitted publicly that he would never serve in a Trump administration? Now he's sitting down to talk with what basically was his mortal enemy during the campaign to suggest that he wants to be part of this administration. Where, burying the hatchet is sort of an understatement in this whole situation. I don't know how that's going to all work out, but they're good questions for both sides on this, and we haven't heard a lot from Mitt Romney on this, and I'd be fascinated to hear what Romney has to say.
Steve, it's interesting if we can get wonky for just a second. So Governor Romney has, as you point out, come around, and he's having these discussions with the Trump campaign and with Donald Trump himself, and the president-elect is seemingly welcoming him with open arms. Evan McMullin, on the other hand, is somebody who was also very critical of Donald Trump during the campaign, and he is still critical. He penned an op-ed in the New York Times where he said, that Trump represents a threat to the Constitution. He's not backing down, and in that case, Trump is not even mentioning his name, but he talks about him. He just did at a rally recently. Is it that because Mitt Romney has come around, Donald Trump is seen as somebody who can actually reach across the aisle if you come to terms with his ideas and his policies? Or, sort of what's going on there if you just look at the two?
Well, it's interesting because you look at who Trump has spoken to and said nice things about since the election. So President Obama, right, a guy that he was out there basically saying he's not American or questioning whether he's an American. Now all of a sudden they're buddy-buddy. He had Al Gore come in to talk about climate change. This is a guy who's on the complete opposite side of the climate change issue as Donald Trump, yet they apparently had a good meeting. Leonardo DiCaprio also on climate change, again on the opposite side. He's bringing people in who have been either enemies politically or are on the opposite side of issues to sit down and meet with him about things. He brought in Michelle Rhee, who worked in Democratic administration in Washington, D.C. on education issues. He brought the Democratic mayor of Washington, D.C. up to meet with him. Rahm Emanuel, the Democratic mayor of Chicago. The list goes on of people who should be on the opposite side of Trump, yet he's sitting down with all these people. So, I think what Trump is trying to show is that he is trying to make an effort to reach across the aisle and meet with folks. The question is, though, can you actually bring a guy like Mitt Romney in who you disagree with on a basic level of personality, of readiness to be president, and expect him to come in and work in your cabinet and listen to you and follow you and your policies? They don't even agree necessarily on all of all the same foreign policy ideas. And so, how is that going to work out? The two of them in the same cabinet, in the same administration. It's a very interesting question, and it's more than just the optics of Trump trying to bury the hatchet, I think.
Yeah, very fascinating stuff. Steve Shigaris, as always, we thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Vlad.